Mr. McGee, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
You are about to listen to the Totally Super Awesome 80s Reboot Overdrive podcast.
This podcast is our fan tribute to the Incredible Hulk TV show. Be advised it has been exposed to radiation and we caution to listen at your own risk. You have now entered GammaCast.
And welcome to the GammaCast. I'm your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me tonight is my wonderful, beautiful, intelligent, articulate, awesome friend, 80s music girl herself,
Rose Fullerton. Yay!
Yay, Rose. So glad to have you. So glad to have you back, honestly. It's always great to have you. You know, I love working with Maz. I love working with you. I love working with David and Phil, too. We've had a lot of great guest hosts over the while we've been doing this show, and it's always glad to have you back. Tonight's episode is 9 Hours, Season 3, Episode 22. Mobsters want to dispose of an old gangster while he's in hospital. They kidnap the son of David Brack's landlady, so he has to let him into the hospital he works in as an orderly. David... What is that? Took away the synopsis. They said, David teams up with another tenant, a washed-up ex-cop, to find the boy before time runs out. Yes. This episode first aired April 4th, 1980. Was directed by Nicholas Correa, written by Kenneth Johnson and Nicholas Correa. So this is very much a creator-centric episode. And, man, the writing is actually really good in this episode, I think. I really love this episode.
It's better than it has been.
Yes, and you know, this is not Sam Monty. It's Joe Lofranco's episode, played by Mark Alamo. And do you know who Mark Alamo is?
No, I don't.
Did you ever watch Star Trek Deep Space Nine?
Yes, I did.
That is Gul Dukat.
Really?
Yes, Gul Dukat.
Holy smokes.
By the time, back in the 80s, he was Gene Scapese in several episodes of Hill Street Blues. He was on Scarecrow and Mrs. King. You know,
I thought he looked familiar.
Yeah, he's a guy you see all over the place. This is actually, he was on BJ and the Bear, one of my favorite old shows. But he was actually, he was on, let me find him here, The Doctors, because I think this is actually his third episode, and The Incredible Hulk. He was on Wonder Woman as well. Yes, this is his third episode. You know, last week we had Gerald McRaney's third episode, or a week ago. We had Gerald McRaney's third episode, and this is Joe Lofranco's. I'm sorry, this is Joe Lofranco. No, not Joe Lofranco. This is, get his actual name. Mark Alamo's third episode. Yeah. He started out as Ernie in Alice in Discoland. Then he was Captain Holt in The Slam. And now he's Joe Lofranco. You know, they always love going back to these great character actors. And it was nice seeing them here. So this is, you know, has so much going on in it. And such great characterization. What did you think? Here's what I'm going to ask you, because to me, because I'm a fat guy, the character I'm always drawn to is the fat guy. What did you think of Fats?
You know, I think they could have did so much more with him. I just, you know, I don't really think he got cut a raw deal on this one, I think.
Well, you know,
I just, because usually and I don't know if they do it now, but they've always tended to make the fat guy funny. It's just like one of those things. If you're fat, you've got a great sense of humor. And he actually looks familiar. I've seen him somewhere before, and I couldn't think of what. I didn't get a chance to.
Yeah, Phil
IMDb him.
Rubenstein. I mean, just to let you know, just to go along with typecasting, I was looking through him earlier. It's like half of his characters are all named Fats or Fatso or Fatty.
Jeez, poor guy.
Hey, you know what? This guy's been working pretty steadily throughout the 80s into the 90s.
Yeah.
His last bit was a short in 1993 called called Heaven, where he played a character named Big Mobster. So. He's gotten around, He was in Drexel's Class, a short-lived Fox sitcom starring Dabney Coleman, if you remember that, back in the early 90s. Yeah, but he was the first garbage man in Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. He was on 2 episodes of Silver Spoon. Again, Scarecrow and Mrs. King.
Mercy.
Yeah, there's lots of shows out there. I mean, these, and this is what I always say about the Incredible Hulk. They really had a great eye for talent of really nice character actors that you would see a lot throughout. Mrs. Grasso, our Nurse Ratchet character. Again, one of these people who honestly has worked consistently from 1944. Pretty much until 1984, when she was her last credit is on Dukes of Hazzard. So this was someone who has been around, working regular, and is not hurting. The Universal system, for what it's worth, they really had a lot. We'll actually, when we get to this next episode, because we're recording a double episode tonight. I'm gonna make mention of like how Universal was able to really do a lot of great things with the Hulk, because they had this really nice system in place for the studio that I don't know if it even exists anymore.
Yeah.
It'd
be nice to know that.
But so Fats is a character. See, I liked Fats because I liked Fats and Slick because they were both clearly not ready for primetime gangsters. Clearly Sam Monty, Frank DeCova, who is our elder gangster, who is the one in hospital. He was clearly the man in charge. This actually is one of his later roles. He actually, his last listed role is Old Vinny in 1982's Hey Good Lookin'. Although he was Crisco in American Pop, which was a great dramatic animated film on HBO when I was a kid, so I always remember that. And he was Chief Wild Eagle in F Troop for many episodes. So this was a guy.
Oh my God, that's right.
Yeah, it looks like he actually.
And you see these characters, you see these actors that are character actors, and it's just, I loved F Troop.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at him going, where have I seen that face? And because certain characters have like certain mannerisms, to make their character come alive. And at one point he was talking with David and I went, I've seen that look before. I'm just not sure where.
Yes.
And lo and behold, that's who he was. Bless his heart.
Other interesting roles, he was Abraham in The Ten Commandments. He played the man in The Mechanic, which is one of my favorite Charles Bronson films. He was also, speaking of adult animated fare, he was in a film called Heavy Traffic. So yeah, it's very interesting. He's one of these Italian actors who had a career playing Native Americans, which we will not comment on at this point in history.
No.
Can't
do it.
Can't do it, no. But, yeah, as always, great actors. But I did like the dichotomy between the nephews of Fats and Slick and the elder statesman Sam Monty. Just if nothing else, because really you got this feeling from Fats and Slick that they just, they were, I remember watching The Sopranos, and there was this item in there where, like, Tony's brother-in-law,
Right.
who was a relatively, was it his brother-in-law? Was it? I'm forgetting, or maybe it was his. Anyway, but there was one guy who had never killed anybody.
Okay.
And they kind of got to this point where, like, hey, you're kind of the kind of the Schmendrick of the crew. This was in the later episodes because he had never killed, and he finally does kill some guy in Canada, which I just thought was
Does that really count, though?
Well, it's I killed a guy once in Canada. You don't know him, but yeah, but it kind of reminded me of Fats and this guy who was probably a nicer guy than should be in organized crime, but because of life and the situation, that's where he found himself.
And then it just kind of takes me back to Guys and Dolls, and with the whole gang of people that Frank Sinatra's character hung out with, and nicely. There's
a very good. Those are all based on short stories, and there's actually a very I forget who wrote the Nathan Detroit short stories, but they're all very good, and they're all written in this great 1930s patter, or what we think of as 1930s patter, probably because that's the patter the guy used who wrote these short stories. And there's this great bit about Nicely, and when he loses the weight. And he's like, gets down to like 98 pounds because he's dating this health nut. And, but they want to put him in this eating contest, but he cannot go into the eating contest. So they have another girl, like a friend of his new girlfriend, is going to be in the eating contest, and he trains her, and it's a beautiful love story about two people who realize don't change who you are, just be happy.
The end.
The end. It's a good one. Yeah, look up the Nathan Detroit stories. They're all good stories. But moving
I will.
I'll
have to check them out.
There's actually another movie with Nathan Detroit called Little Miss Marker with what's his name? Walter Matthau as Nathan Detroit.
Okay. Really?
Yes. Just to give you
I think.
It's one of those films where you don't realize, oh wow, that's that character. It's like when you find out that what's the character from Die Hard?
Bruce Willis's character.
Yeah, Bruce Willis's character. In the original, in another film, that character was actually played by Frank Sinatra.
Wow.
Yes, it's because they're based off of the same book series.
Freaky.
Yeah, that's just to bring it all back home. But anyway, back to this film, this episode. So, because we could talk all day about random pop cultural connections, because there are a lot.
Absolutely.
Of them. So back to this episode. Because David, once again, back in the 80s when they just did not do background checks.
Yes, I saw that. He got a pretty swank job there.
Yeah, well, you know what?
Hospital.
Not for nothing, the man is a doctor. He knows all the right words to say. And we do see it. He gets like these medical gigs not uncommonly, Because he can go in and he can say, oh, yes, well, of course, I understand, doctor. And he knows how to talk to doctors.
Mm-hmm.
He knows how to... this guy, he's a smart guy. He's been around the block, and he knows how to work this system. And at this point, he's probably got it down to something of a science, although next episode he's back to being homeless. But, we'll deal with that then.
Yeah, that was kind of tough.
Yeah, although, again, ingratiates himself right onto a new gig. But so here he is, and and again, this is one of these great episodes where he's got himself really set up nice, established. He's got a place where he lives, which is, it seems like it's an apartment building, but maybe it's a boarding house, or it's got some kind of gray area, because he's like really good friends with the landlord, and he's like eats dinner at her house every night. Now that could just be because he is Dr. David Banner and is,
Yeah.
he's the guy you want to be raising your son.
I was going to say, you kind of want to cook for him, maybe iron his shirts or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Keep him looking nice.
But of course you wind up with Gold Ducat.
Yeah, the drunk ex-cop with the heart of gold.
Yeah, well, he does, and for what it's, man, I really wish we'd gotten, so anyway, again, I really wish we'd gotten more on what, Joe Franco's, or Mark Alamo's character, Joe Franco, gets some really good scenes. And like some fantastic it's like one of these things where like, when I used to be an actor, you always had to like have a monologue. You need a modern monologue. And man, if I had been watching this, if they had had Netflix, then I would have totally been cribbing a lot of these great monologues, like from Gerald McRaney and Mark Alamo, because he's got this great monologue when he's talking about why he can't be a cop anymore, and it is so beautiful. And this is, we get this ongoing thing where he's a drunk, and he is. He's not a particularly lovable drunk. He's not like a horrible drunk, but he's like, you can tell that he's a drunk who's on his way to homelessness.
He's a sloppy drunk.
Yeah, he's a sloppy drunk. He's not a good drunk. He is he's a drunk who doesn't like to waste his time.
Right.
Is what it's like.
Right, drinking.
Yeah, well, there's a great line by Garrison Keillor, which is about why the bars close at 10 in Minnesota. Which is that, quite frankly, if you can't get drunk by 10 o'clock, you're just not trying, and we don't have time to wait around for you.
Hard enough.
And this is a man who he'd do just fine in Minnesota. Yeah.
6 o'clock, he'd be finished.
He'd be done.
Hey,
if it's that important to you, honestly, if it's really that important to you, you can get drunk in an hour. It's easy.
Oh, easy.
Yeah. So, but yeah, he is a stumbling around drunk, and he says things that are untoward to young Timmy, which makes him feel bad.
Such a cutie.
He is. Yeah. David Comfort, who plays Timmy Wilkes. Not much of an IMDb. He obviously got out of the business later. Although again, he was in Fatso with Dom DeLuise. So great.
Love that movie.
Yeah,
totally.
yeah. Well, Dom DeLuise, how can go wrong with him? And he was in a film called, in 2003. He was in a short film called Power Meeting, where he played a character named Dick Grayson. In 1984, he was in a short called Quest. Yeah, he's done a lot, and he was actually he played Dick Thompson, and it's weird because like, Timmy Wilkes was the kid. Timmy was the kid. Yeah, but he
kid.
Yeah. Anyway.
Very innocent.
Well, or maybe I'm looking at someone else here. I don't know. I'm kind of confused, or maybe they just got his IMDb mixed up with his dad, maybe. No, I'm sorry. No, Danny was the kid. Danny was the kid. That was John Medici. And he has worked a lot. He was in Murphy Brown. He was in Cagney and Lacey as Kurtz. Hill Street Blues. He was Feinstein. He was in the Jane Man. I gotta always double check these things.
Yeah.
I don't know who anyone is anymore because some of these people might have been somebody else. So, anyway, there was a little kid in this who at this point I'm not even certain who played him because it's a little confusing going through this.
Yeah.
I assumed it was Timmy because there's a Rhonda Wilkes who I assume was the mom, and then Timmy Wilkes would be the boy. But it's just I guess the dates kind of match, but he's got stuff going back to 1963 on this. Yeah, so he would have to be a very tiny baby in this. So I'm like, no, that can't be him. But like, I'm thinking maybe he was a Timmy. I'm thinking maybe it was a Dave Comfort Jr. and then a Dave Comfort Sr. and IMDb just can't differentiate. Because maybe one was out of the business by the time the other one got in. So
Possibly.
Anyway.
Well, that's what happened to Mickey Dolenz. His father was in television and something happened. He got into television. He was like circus boy or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that whole scenario is just bizarre.
Yes.
But yeah, so it can happen.
It can happen. IMDb, it's a computer system. It is not infallible. Okay, so what happens? So what happened was, basically, Fats and Slick have been staking out the hospital. They know that David is this guy who, honestly, this is a really ornate plan. This is a really good criminal plan. Because they know what time, they know that David is a creature of habit. He knows when he goes to each door, and they just need someone to open the door for them.
Mm-hmm.
And their option is because they found that David is friends with this kid. Mm-hmm. Oh, and one of the nice things that we see earlier than this is Joe. He gets the kid a present when he says something bad about birthdays. And what I really loved about it is he wraps it in aluminum foil, which is such a thing that, I remember wrapping presents in aluminum foil because it's just who had paper, who had wrapping paper, and
it was kind of neat that he was able to clean up just for a bit, just so he could come down and give them.
Well, that's the thing about most drunks is they do have their moments when they're sober. And we do see Frank have his sober moments here and there in this. Right. I'm sorry, not Joe. Joe have his sober moments in here, and so what happens is that of course Fats and Slick snatch up Timmy. Very scary because this is the 80s. This is when kids start disappearing, and David chases after them, falls down a manhole cover, and we get our first Hulk out.
It's hit by a car and knocked into the manhole. I thought, wow.
Yeah, and
that's not cool.
No, not
you got
cool.
hit that hard?
And of course, no one stops to go find out what happened.
No, of course not. Where is it? If it wasn't New York, it must have been Chicago or something like that.
It was some city, yeah.
It was just the crime-ridden streets. You could see the thugs hanging out, harassing people, and it was.
Yeah. Although for what it's worth, when Joe first shows up, he's like, "Oh, pretty moms, nice guys. Mm-hmm. The slums are becoming the suburbs."
Yeah.
Early complaints of gentrification, even in the 1980s. So we get our Hulk out, although the Hulk really can't do much because everybody drives away.
I know. And somehow he's, cognitive enough to go, okay, so if I go to the next manhole cover down in the sewer, maybe I can catch him.
Yeah, well, for what it's worth,
working it out in his head.
For what it's worth, the Hulk is never that out of it. No. And the Hulk, he has his big raw frustration scene, and then we sort of cut back, and just to give you the sexual dynamics of early 80s, no one wants to tell the mom what happened to her son. Just the drifter and the drunk discussing how should we handle this
let's go take this in the other room. I'm like, what? You better tell that woman what happened to her kid.
Yes, so... Oh, you know what? Well, I mean, they may be a drifter and a drunk, but they are the men. So, manly men.
I like the line, the manly men. I like the line where she tells Joe, "Look, I don't like you. You're drunk, you're mean, but I don't have any place else to go. So, can you help me?"
Well, yeah, I like about it is like, you're not my friend. David's my friend.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
but David's
really like,
not you.
yeah. They were honestly that they kind of wind up together at the end of the. Sorry, spoilers. That they wind up together at the end of this.
I know, right?
Really kind of felt undeserved, except for this idea that maybe, hey, you're desperate, I'm desperate. Maybe we can be desperate together.
Exactly. And David just like hands her over, like she's chattel or something. She's a nice woman,
Yeah, well, that's...
And iron your shirts. I'd hit that if I were you.
Yeah, well...
Like, really? Come on.
We're going to say that maybe as good of a show as this is, maybe Nicholas Correa and Kenneth Johnson do not have the most advanced gender equality thoughts in their head.
No, I don't think they do.
No, I mean, I think it's kind of like Hugh Hefner, which is like there is this idea of gender equality within the hierarchy. It's like yes, women should be free to do whatever they want, so long as they understand that they're still women. It's
exactly, and just not here.
Yeah, Anyway, well, it's just sometimes yeah. Anyway, and of course, just prior to this, we do get a nice thing where David tries to get Joe a job, and of course the captain of the guard is like, no, because I was leaving the force when you were being drummed out of it, and I know that you. Apparently, he didn't pull the trigger at a time, and his partner died, and that's what drove him to become a drunk. Yeah. And. Honestly, I mean, there was such a story there as to why he didn't pull the trigger, what happened, and we never got it. And honestly, I think even in our modern era, you could even get a whole deeper conversation about whether or not, was this other person, why he didn't see him as a threat, But we only have an hour to tell this story.
This is true. Do you think that perhaps he had some involvement with, say, people of fats and his kind?
Oh, well, that's
possibly the reason why he didn't pull the trigger when he needed to.
No, I don't think that's the reason why. I think he had involvement with people like Fats because he was a cop, and and one thing we've noticed about cops in this universe, they are not. I mean, they're generally speaking good people unless they run a prison. But they certainly aren't.
Then you've got no hope. No hope whatsoever.
Well, actually, let me rephrase that, because actually, among the cops we've recently seen, we've seen the guys who put David in the slam. We've seen the serial killer sheriff in the last one, and so maybe cops aren't that good at people. So there definitely is this idea that he is working with criminals, but I don't think that was seen as the detriment.
Right.
It's sort of that film noir-y aspect of it. It's just, it's a dirty world, and sometimes you gotta get dirty to get the dirt out,
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. So, they tell David he's gotta open the door at such and such time. They've got 9 hours. And basically, Joe goes, shakes down his informants, and does a great little good cop, bad cop with one of his snitches. And I love the statement he makes. He's like, "No, I'm not a cop. I'm a private citizen. And if I get into a fight with a private citizen, it ain't no problem,
Yeah, I know. Like, two private citizens having a conversation. No. Doesn't look like that to me.
Yeah, and of course, for what it's worth, he knew Fats from the description.
Yeah.
Scar. Yes, the scar. Fat guy with a scar on his face.
Fat guy with a scar. It's a big city. I don't know.
There's only one fat guy, man. This is. Hey.
I actually thought that was pretty sad. That it's just like.
Well, it's the fat guy.
He starts chasing him, He's like, I'm like, really? You're chasing the fat guy? He's going to get like maybe half a block down the street before he has to wait.
Hey, as a fat guy, I will tell you, some of us fat guys are actually very athletic.
Yes, I do know this, but he didn't look like the type.
Maybe not fats per se, but I know from personal experience, because we got very strong leg muscles from carrying around fat all day. So we got We got that core strength. You don't know that about fat guys. If they're active fat guys, they've got amazing core strength because they're just basically carrying around free weights all day, you know. Anyways, so they find out where the kid is being held. They throw Fats in a trunk. Because this isn't going to come back to bite them in any way after the Hulk leaves. I hope that they just tied up a mobster and thwarted their plans.
Yeah, nobody's going to come looking for this guy. Well, actually, he is. Yeah, they will, but you know.
Well, yeah.
Who would think that he'd be in a trunk? But that's actually pretty standard operating procedures. If you've ever worked for the mob or anything, you know, that's like the first place you put them.
I guess
in order to get them where you need them.
They didn't kill Fats I don't think they killed Slick. So, you know, basically the two hitmen got arrested. You know, what's his name turned states of evidence, and maybe, you know, and Fats and Slick probably just thought, you know, better to just fade back into the background.
They don't know anything.
See who the syndicate sends down to take Uncle Monty's place, and we'll be okay.
Yeah.
I
was just there, like the guy, the Allstate guy. I know he has a name, but to see him back that far.
Mm-hmm.
As a character, you know, in a TV series, I have to admit his afro looked a bit fake. It looked like a wig.
Wait, who is this?
The Allstate guy. You know, the guy that has the FBI guy that was guarding the room.
Oh yeah, him. He's the Allstate guy?
Yeah, he's the Allstate. He's the guy that does fake commercials.
Oh, Dennis Haysbert.
Thank you.
Yes.
And, I was like, hey, it's that guy.
Yeah, okay. Now I know who you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, he actually, of course, a lot of work. He was in Kung Fu Panda. He plays Ox.
Sweet.
Yes. He was in Static Shock. He was Chief Barnsdale. Yeah, superhero tie-in, man. He's Duckman. Return to Lonesome. Yeah, this guy's all over the place. Yeah, he does work a lot, and but that's him way back when, man. Yeah, that's and actually, cool. I was actually curious because I wanted to see if he was in any other Hulks. Oh, Buck Rogers in the 25th Century. You know, it's always good when you're in that. And no, this is his only Incredible Hulk role. So he was too busy to do another Hulk role. Anyway, so Joe goes to the theater where Timmy's being held. Meanwhile, David cannot, he doesn't get called in time, so he does have to let the bad guys in.
Yeah.
Joe goes and faces off against Slick and does defeat him. Again, I don't think he kills him. I think he just incapacitates him to save Timmy.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the killers are in the building, but of course, we get a Hulk to save the day.
Yes.
Yay, Hulk.
Yeah, he really, I have to admit, once, because they found out, because the guy was trying to get out of bed and the nurse was trying to protect him with all the whirlpool baths and, of course, to block the door, and that didn't work.
Yeah.
But, the one time when the one guy got knocked out, and then the one with the gun, and then the other guy who had his arm around the nurse's neck, he got I don't know what that thing, that big cabinet, looked like a armoire or a shrunk or something. He got tossed into that. I was like, that was awesome. He just totally just mashed him into that. It's just like, do that again. It was perfect. That was like one take. I said, get him right in the middle.
Oh, there you go.
Make him knock the whole thing down. Let's do one take on that. That was pretty cool.
It was pretty cool. It was really a great episode. And then, after, of course, all the bad guys have been captured, we get our nice our cap-off scene where basically David says, hey, here's a lady, and you're not drunk right now, so I can't imagine this will end poorly. Well, I mean, for what it's worth, he now has purpose, and one of my favorite movies from like the 1930s is a great film called A Great Man Votes, with Drew Barrymore's grandfather.
Oh, yes.
And in his end career when he was playing drunks, and he plays this kind of down and out ex-Harvard professor who lives in the one gerrymandered district where he's the only registered voter, but whoever that district votes for winds up winning the election. It's a weird thing. Anyway, and
sounds pretty weird.
It's a great. They've done like several remakes of it. In fact, the film Swing State, which wasn't too long ago, was sort of the latest Swing State about the drunk janitor in the school who falls in love with the person, the fixer for the election. It's a great film. A Great Man Votes. I highly recommend it. And cool. That is. I can't remember where I was going. Well, so the point of it is because when the woman who realizes that he's this old Harvard professor says, "Wait, I've read your work. How did you come to be this drunk?" And he says, "Oh, well, there are many men who are just, but basically you're drunk until you have a reason to not be one. And when you have a woman to not be a drunk for, then you not be a drunk for her." Now, of course, why his two kids weren't a reason to not be a drunk, we're not quite sure. But this was the 1930s, so...
This is true. Yeah. And you had even more of a freedom to, be oppressive even then. Because,
exactly. Oh, okay. But anyway, so we're going to assume that now that he has a good woman... and a good job and self-respect again to be a hospital guard, he will be a good man, and they will raise young Timmy to be a good man as well. And all will be well. Yeah. The end. Any final thoughts on tonight's episode, Rose?
Well, I just really was glad that it had some good dialogue for a change. Mm-hmm. The Hulk outs were, they weren't kind of displaced as they had been before. Getting knocked into a open manhole, I should say, is a pretty darn good reason to get Hulk out. And then, of course, you're running and then somebody shoots you. So yeah, that's another good reason. I don't know how they dealt with that, because I don't think I've ever seen in the episodes that I've watched with you. I'm sure there's plenty of them where he actually gets maimed, like shot or something, and then he helps out. Yeah. So that was kind of like how's he going to deal with that? Well, he just kind of mildly looks at his shoulder and rubs it a bit, and then he's fine. I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm sure that's going to hurt like a mother when you go back to real life.
Well, no, they actually have established this in previous episodes, where essentially what happens is, the Hulk, he has that accelerated metabolism, so he basically has a healing factor.
So he heals.
He heals it right up, like it was not even a thing. So yeah. I
was a little concerned. So, but yeah, overall, great episode. Everybody was pretty much happy at the end, and probably except for Fats and Slick, who Lord knows what happened. They're on the line.
They went to jail, I'm sure. That's what happens. Okay. Rose, how can people find you if they want to talk to you about the Incredible Hulk or anything else?
Well, I am on Twitter at 80s Music Girl. I'm 80s Music Girl on Instagram and 80s Music Girl on Facebook.
Okay, and of course you can always write to me in that old-fashioned email way at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. And, of course, follow me on the Twitters as I do live tweet The Incredible Hulk, 7 o'clock on Saturdays on MeTV, Eastern Time, at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieEsser. Look for the 2 E's in the middle for quality. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for hulking out with us once again. Please hulk out with us again.